So, what is J.D. Vance's story? He's the best-selling author of Hillbilly Elegy, a U.S. senator turned vice president of the United States under Donald Trump. But behind the polished title is a life that began in poverty, chaos, and one grandmother who could outcuss an entire biker gang. The basics. J.D. Vance was born James David Bowman in 1984 in Middletown, Ohio. If you've never been, Middletown used to be a booming steel town. By the time Vance came along, the jobs were gone, the mills were rusting, and hope felt like a luxury item. Childhood and early life. His family life was anything but stable. His mom, Bev, struggled with drug addiction and went through multiple relationships, which meant J.D. bounced between father figures the way most kids bounce between video game consoles. His biological dad, Don Bowman, left when J.D. was young, and while Don later reconnected, J.D. spent most of his childhood in chaos. That chaos included everything from police visits to family blow-ups that could have doubled as reality TV episodes. If Netflix had been around in the 90s, Hillbilly Elegy might have been a series before it was a book. The one stabilizing force was his grandmother, Bonnie Mama Vance, a tough-as-nails Appalachian transplant from Kentucky. Mama had a shotgun in her closet, a cigarette in her hand, and an iron will that could bend steel beams. She also cussed like a sailor, which, for young J.D., was both terrifying and comforting. Imagine being tucked in at night with the words, "I love you, but if you screw up, I'll kill ya." That's parenting, Appalachian edition. J.D.'s grandfather, Papa, worked at the steel mill but was often drunk and distant, so Mama became the loud, fiery protector. She once literally set her husband on fire during an argument, not a metaphor, actual flames, which probably taught J.D. early on that conflict resolution in his family was unconventional. Despite the volatility, Mama pushed J.D. to focus on school and to break the cycle of addiction and poverty. She was blunt about it too, often telling him, "You're not going to be like your mom, and if you try, I'll bust your ass." Tough love with heavy emphasis on tough. School wasn't easy. J.D. often found himself the poor kid among classmates who had stable homes. He carried the weight of his mother's addiction, moving between households, and even had to intervene when her boyfriends got violent. That survival mode childhood wired him to stay hyper-alert, a trait that later helped in the Marines. By the time he hit high school, J.D. was smart but aimless. He described himself as a screw-up teetering between two futures, either repeat the chaos he grew up in or claw his way out. Mama was the one who hammered the latter into him, telling him he had potential even when the rest of the world didn't see it. How it works. Vance joined the Marines straight out of high school, serving in Iraq as a combat correspondent. Sure, he wasn't out there sniping insurgents, but he was documenting the lives of Marines. And given his upbringing, it probably felt like just another kind of war zone. After service, he went to Ohio State, then Yale Law School, where he found himself in classrooms full of elites. Imagine showing up from Middletown, Ohio, and the guy next to you's dad owns 3 islands. Talk about culture shock. His memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, published in 2016, became a bestseller and was later adapted into a Ron Howard film. It was supposed to be inspirational, though let's be honest, the movie mostly inspired people to tweet, "Wow, that was depressing." Political career. At first, Vance was a vocal Trump critic. In 2016, he called Trump cultural heroin and compared him to an idiot, which, if you know Trump, is about as bad as swearing on his name in church. Fast forward a few years and Vance flipped. By 2022, he ran for Senate in Ohio as a full-blown Trump ally. Did people call it opportunism? Absolutely. Did it work? Also absolutely. He won. 2 years later, Trump tapped him as his running mate, and on January 20th, 2025, J.D. Vance was sworn in as the 50th Vice President of the United States. From chaotic Ohio roots to the second highest office in the land, talk about a wild trajectory. Impact and legacy. As Vice President, J.D. Vance represents a new kind of Republican image, working class, populist, anti-establishment, at least on paper. He's young, he's tech-savvy thanks to his years in venture capital, and he appeals to voters who feel left behind by both parties. But his critics argue he reinvented himself for power, from Trump critic to Trump's right-hand man. It's like if you swore off junk food forever and then opened a Taco Bell franchise. Random facts. He was born James Donald Bowman before his stepdad adopted him, and he became James David Vance. His mama's shotgun wasn't just for show. J.D. said she once threatened to shoot someone for insulting her grandson. He openly admits he once hated reading as a kid. Ironic for a best-selling author. He worked at a Peter Thiel-backed VC firm before politics. Trump endorsed him in 2022 after saying, "JD is kissing my ass." Not exactly the hallmark quote you put on your resume, but it got the job done. Conclusion. So, what is J.D. Vance's story? He's the hillbilly who went Ivy League, the critic who became an ally, the best-selling author turned vice president of the United States. His childhood was chaos wrapped in love, raised by a grandmother who believed profanity could double as therapy. Whether you see him as a voice for the forgotten or just another climber, one thing's clear. J.D. Vance went from Appalachian trauma to the White House in just a few decades. If you also like learning random things, subscribe. You have found your happy place. Poem, Elegy in Reverse. From rusted mills to Yale's bright halls, a boy from Middletown heard the calls. Mama's fire lit his way through chaos, love, and skies of gray. A critic once, now side by side, with the man he swore he'd never ride. From holler roots to DC's stage, a hillbilly's tale rewrites its page.